Welcome back to Unemployed Millennial Podcast. I am your host, Anne Marie, and today is the last time you will ever see me in this closet. I'm at home in Austin, Texas. This has been my home since mid-September, and all the boys are home, and they're all upstairs just like hanging out, talking with each other, doing what boys do. I think they're like listening to music and stuff. It's Saturday, so it's just the weekend and we're all just home. And again, this is my last day here. This is my last full day here, my last night, and then I will be packing my things up. I've not actually packed it all. I'll be packing my belongings up and driving. I have a family friend coming in tonight in about 2 hours. It's funny because my last podcast episode, I was getting ready to host a bunch of people for my birthday, but my birthday was actually so much fun. This week has been so much fun. I don't know. The conclusion to this little chapter in Austin has actually been so amazing. And there's actually kind of a beauty of closing one chapter because I came back on Christmas Day. We all flew out from Alaska, and I got here the 26th at 5 a.m. and I was kind of sad. I was like, oh, I think I'll really miss this place. I was starting to get nostalgic already, and I hadn't even left. I had a few weeks still here, and it's kind of funny now. I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm very much ready to leave. I honestly cannot imagine staying another week, but I can't tell if that's just the story in your head, because this has happened a few times. When I was leaving your mom's house in New York, I was just like, I literally cannot imagine staying here another week. But I mean, it's already been made up in my head for a few weeks. So I think just subconsciously, I'm like, okay, yes, wrapping this chapter up. But I think the huge benefits to just closing a chapter, there are pros and cons. But one of the pros is just you tie up loose ends, or just you do the things that you've wanted to do. You see the people that you've made friends with, that you might not otherwise. I've seen so many of the friends that I've made here, and I've just been reflecting on a lot of things because I turned 28, so that was kind of big. And I had my birthday, and then last week and this week I'm leaving, so I'm kind of meeting up with everyone and just kind of wrapping things up. So that's a huge pro. I really love that. And so yeah, I've been really occupied, and even up until tomorrow we have more friends to meet. So yeah, I kind of just want to talk about a reflection of my last few months, I guess. I really don't have anything planned for this podcast, but I think this is kind of why I'm excited to do the podcast, because I feel like I always have a lot of things going on in my life, to the point where I haven't even posted my little Instagrams for my birthday. But I like having this as a kind of just a digital public diary, just to see where and what I'm doing at the time, because I've been on YouTube. I feel like I've said this a million times in the last few months, but I've been on YouTube for 11 years now. And I think social media I don't think you can always be super present on social media. I don't think you should. If you're trying to be present in real life, you need to kind of take breaks every now and then. But this is just the best way for me to keep everyone updated in a way that I like. Just long form, sit down chatting with you all. So I'll cover my birthday, because that was kind of really special for me. I think the last 3 years, so 25, 26, 27, I spent in Anchorage. And the common theme was just my mom was always there. So I would spend my birthday with my mom in Alaska. I don't know why I said Alaska, but I kind of think partially I have a lot of people in my life that I love and that I know love me, and I'm extremely blessed in that department. Truly, I just developed really old film, literally from when I was in elementary school. I've just had apparently these cameras, and it was cool that they're my cameras, because developing someone else in my family's film would be kind of odd, maybe. But literally, I have one of the photos is from a friend's birthday party where we all took a limo and went up the Turnagain Arm, and I have my I'm still friends with those people to this day. Not everyone, but I kind of know what everyone's doing from my childhood, and that is just very special. We had to be in 5th grade. Yeah, I think it was 5th or 6th grade. So like 12 years old. So that's literally like a 15-year-old disposable camera that I just got back today. So I have lots of people that I really love in this world, and that is like the biggest blessing, I think. Like, honestly, I am very grateful for the relationships in my life. But for birthdays, I remember for my 16th birthday party, I had a group of friends that I would want to celebrate it with. I don't know if it's like an attention thing, like I just don't like the attention spotlight or what, but I think part of me just like always being in Alaska is because I just want to keep it like chill, low key. I feel like I live a life where I kind of like celebrate like a little bit every day. That's how I just live. So birthdays are not a huge deal to me, and I don't like make it a big deal. But in the back of my head, I'm kind of also like, after I had this birthday, basically I wasn't really planning anything. So super last minute, I was just like, oh, like gathering all my friends for dinner. And it was like extremely last minute especially for like some people. I invited one friend, Oyen, and because she lives in Austin, and I was like, are we gonna be here for the 5th? And she was like, yes. And I was like, okay, do you want to celebrate my birthday together? And that was like my plan, like a week up front. And then everything just kind of like fell into place later. But part of the reason why I think maybe sometimes I don't want to celebrate outside of Alaska is just like I can't tell, maybe it's like me just not wanting to make all the attention on me. I can definitely hear the bass. I wonder if you guys can hear that. It'll be interesting. But this was really cool because I had just like a small group of people, friends. Like I had my friend Kelly Stamps come to stay with me. My mom actually flew down like pretty last minute, which was really, really cool that she got to meet all of my Austin friends. I had my friends Isaiah Steezy Kane, and Isaiah Photos from YouTube, like my YouTube friends, Karin and Oyen. And it was really cool too, because I've met all these people at like kind of different points of my life. Like I met Oyen when I was working at Neutrogena at USC, and we both like kind of did nothing like all day, and we just like would come and sit with each other and like work. We actually did like 1 hour of actual work a day, and like I don't know, I think they loved me there. Maybe I should not say that, but it's just the truth, like just a corporate job. And that was like 7 years ago. And I'm just like, wow, I actually cannot believe how that was 7 years ago. I think it was 7 years ago because that was like around 2017. So that's cool because there's this like, I don't know if this is true at all or if there are any studies or if this is just like lore, but someone somewhere once said that if you've been friends with someone for 7 years, you're likely to be friends for life. So we achieved that status, me and Oyen. So that was really cool. And then Steezy I met at one of the Creator Camp events, which is like actually how I ended up meeting the guys that I live with now. And Karin and Isaiah I met through this guy named Tejas during my last week in New York when I was moving out of your mom's house. And they just happened to be like, I just happened to meet them because Tejas like brought him through. And now Tejas lives in New York, and he's a part of the content closet, and I'm sitting in a closet right now making content, so we could really say that this is the actual content closet. So yeah, just like cool little different meeting points that have brought us like all together, and it was really fun because I actually really like bringing a lot of different groups of people together because again, it kind of deflects the attention. Like if I love one-on-one conversations, but then if there's like a group of 3 or 4, I think it's because I've always grown up in groups of 3. Like I'm one of 3 kids, and if in my family, me, my mom, my sister all hang out all the time. And then growing up, I had like a group of 3 best friends, or it was 3 of us, me, Grace, and Emma. So I often find myself as the third wheel, or I put myself in the third wheel position because I think it's just kind of easier. I don't really know what the reasoning behind that is. It's like a really interesting observation I had. Like I'm really good in groups of 3s, and yeah, if I have like a friend group, or if I'm third wheeling, it's just like it's kind of fine for me. I don't really mind it, unless the couple, or unless they make me feel like a third wheel. If it's like a good couple, they don't really make you feel like that. Or if it's like a good friend group, Anyway, so basically for this birthday dinner, That was super last minute. I was grateful because my mom got to meet like all of my Austin friends and people that I've been talking about for like a really long time. It was really, really sweet because like I didn't have anything planned for like an agenda or whatever. But Isaiah, who has like a YouTube called Isaiah Photos. I don't even know his last name, honestly, or I think I know it, but I don't know how to say it. And I don't know if he even shares it, but he had this really, he was like, in my family, we do this tradition where we do a honey roast. And it means like you say one thing, one memory, or just like something that you love about the person. And so the subject was me. And this was perfect because I didn't really want to be put on the spot. And I can't really think of answers like too well on the spot. Like he also asked me my top 5 moments from 27. And I couldn't think of any, but it actually made the best journal prompt. I was like, I will actually journal on that. And I did. I went outside this week and journaled, and it was actually such a great prompt. And I don't usually use prompts to journal, so it kind of like changed my perspective a little bit. So the honey roast was really, really sweet because I think you gain like a lot of identity from people in your life that reflect things back to you about yourself. It's kind of hard to know, like, I mean, you can overthink like all day how you're being perceived, but you can only truly know when you're out in the wild, like interacting. A lot of us gain identity from the things that are reflected back to us. So like when your friends or when your parents are like, oh, you're so good at this, or your friend is like, you're a great listener, or you're very go with the flow. Like these are all things that I'm like, oh, okay, these are my good skills that stand out. Like you have a lot of my friends like tell me that I have a good intuition, where I think intuitively I know that, but it's like sometimes just helpful to have these things reflected back to you, because I think in some way that's how we kind of shape our identity about ourselves and how we perceive ourselves. So this was a really adorable kind of thing that Isaiah suggested. And it was just really sweet because I mean, I was already really grateful that everyone just like showed up super last minute to this dinner. But the things that everyone said about me really just like touched my heart. That was amazing. That was like honestly very, very touching. The thing that I thought would be interesting to talk about, well, first of all, I wrote down the energy because I feel like the collective energy or something happening has been very interesting this week or this past week. So right now it is, I decided my upload date was Tuesday. It is January 13th. And I just sent like a bunch of people a ton of like, I took 5 cameras, disposable cameras to get developed. It was kind of expensive. The cool thing about sending and taking disposables or film photos is, first of all, I feel like it's like a true test of like your artistic talent in your eye, because you have like one shot. But the fun thing is like I have 5 photos or camera rolls full of photos, literally from back to when I was like 12 years old. So I sent them. It's a really great way to keep up, or just like to, because sometimes you like want to talk to your friends, but you have nothing to say. And I think it's always like really special when you just like think of someone and then you just like text them anyway. Like who out of your friends like wouldn't want to get that, even if it's just like a nice thinking of you type thing. I think that's really important. But I feel like sending them like a photo from a memory that you kind of forgot about is just like next level special. And now I'm going to talk about my 5 top moments of 27. And even in my journal, I wrote prompt by Isaiah Photos. I like how I just make that his name. I thought I was going to have to like go through my camera roll and like really scroll and try to like remember what the year had been like. But these were just kind of off the top of my head moments that I just was like, okay, yeah, these like are pretty much solid. So my first pick, and these are not in order. Maybe I'll do them in chronological order for when I'm talking. So my first top memory was when I turned 27 on January 5th, 2023. I was in Alaska, and there's this town called Girdwood in Anchorage, or it's like 40 minutes from Anchorage, and it's where the ski resort is. So Alyeska Ski Resort. That's like one of my favorite places in the world. It just seems like the energy there is just like kind of magical. It's a great vibe. The context for me growing up there is like I would always go there. I don't know. I have like great memories. Well, the first memory was pretty bad of like my sister taking me up to the top of Alyeska on the tram and then leaving me there and then me having to wait for them to come all the way back up because I was such a bad snowboarder. And this is the time of my life I was extremely disconnected from my body. So that was actually traumatic. Like I just sat there. I was like, this is the, I'm just going to be here forever. But slowly over time, I've become much more comfortable in my body, honestly, through yoga and just like, I guess, growing up. And I recently went back in 2020. I mean, I've been back since, but I went there to actually do a brand deal with like I know the marketing guy or one of my friends, Alyssa, connected me with the marketing guy there. And we had a really interesting discussion of how I was trying to do Alaska Friends to like promote tourism in Alaska. And we had an interesting discussion about how we think that Alaska tourism should be pushed in winter because everyone goes there in the summer because it's beautiful. I feel like there's no better place to be than Alaska in the summer. But I think winter is a really fascinating, cool time to go, especially if you're not used to snow and like being outside in the winter. I think it's a very cool place to visit. So the one memory that I have like of just being comfortable there, because I remember we went snowboarding with my friend Alyssa because they like basically just comped our stay and like they gave us like a little pass for snowboarding. And I remember I had like a hint of that like discomfort because I had grown up so much. Like in 2020 I was 4 years younger, so I was 24 and I was much more comfortable in my body at this point. And I could even just like moving your body is easy if you grow like a mind body connection. So like yoga, I think helps everything, including like snowboarding. I was just actually able to move my body in a better way. But I did have that like hint of like, oh, when I was like a child, like my inner child that was like really scared and like uncomfortable going down the mountain. And then I just got over it. It was kind of crazy. Because I was like, wow, I'm not that person anymore and I don't have to approach it this way. Like at first, like my body was just like tensed and stressed. And then I was just like, I could just like breathe through this. Like my friend could tell that I was like getting uncomfortable. It was fascinating. But, they recently opened, not recently, I guess like a year and a half ago, the ski resort opened a Nordic spa, an outdoor Nordic spa. So I went there for my 27th birthday and we were the very first people there. I think it opens at like 8 or 9 and my mom booked us massages at this spa, which I wouldn't recommend because they're really expensive. I think we got like the discount because on Black Friday they have like a certain discount on email. So we got a good discount, but we got like a massage for my 28th birthday, just like in a random, strip mall. And that was like probably the best massage. But for my 27th birthday, my mom actually took like the first massage. She asked me and I was like, oh, I'll just go in the pool because basically it's like an outdoor. They have cold plunges, they have hot tubs, and then they have saunas, and it's just like all outside. So it's kind of really cool. And it's, I think, the coolest attraction or like spa that Alaska currently has because a lot of things in Alaska are like super old. And I actually really hope you can hear the background because this is just my life here. Like this is just like me. I feel like a mom like living with 3 boys. Like I answered the door rang, and of course like no one answers it, so I'm like, okay. And it's like a delivery guy, and then I'm like, okay, thank you. And he's like, what's the code? And I'm like, I don't know the code, I didn't order delivery. So I have to be like, Max, just like yelling at my kids. So the first week of my 27th year on this planet. So then I decide, I don't do like cold plunges that often because I don't really have access to it, but I've done it a few times. And I was like, okay, I think this will be a great start to my 27th year. So I decided, literally no one else is around. It's like kind of pitch black because in the winter time right now, it's just dark and then we get like increasingly more sunlight. But there's a lot of, it's like, I don't know, 20 hours of darkness, like probably 19 or 18 now. But I was the only one out there and I decided to go in the cold plunge and then I just do it. I just like dunk my head in and I'm just sitting there for 2 minutes and then I'm watching the clock. And after a while, I just don't feel cold anymore. And so I'm like, okay, I think I can just sitting here for like a little bit longer. Why don't I just try to hit 5 minutes? So then I sit there and I'm just kind of like trying to do my deep breaths, because I also think yoga helps with this. Like your breath controls you can use your breath to guide your body, to control your emotions, to control your actions, you know? So I'm sitting there, and the longer that I sit there breathing, the harder it starts snowing, which was just so cool. Like I really wish I had just kind of snuck in my phone, but it was also cool that I just had this moment to myself. Not a single person around, just me in this like ice bath with the snow falling like harder in one of my favorite places. So that was really special. And I took that as like a good sign. I don't know what that sign was, but I was just like, this, I can do anything. And it felt just very right. And it was cool because I love snow. So that was a really cool moment. So that was the first one on my chronological list. And then all of the rest of them actually happened after June, because I have that summer solstice in Alaska. I helped host my family friends. This was kind of like a pivotal, interesting inflection point in my life, I think, because I realized in these weeks that I just was trying to go back to New York for so long. And this is when I realized that it was not only pointless, but kind of like detrimental to whatever I was trying to do. So this was like kind of just a point where I realized that I didn't need to go back to New York and like try to pursue something that was just like pointless for me. So I'm currently working on my fleas video where I kind of like explain this whole thing. But summer solstice is, I think, one of my favorite holidays. That's not really a holiday. This is where in Alaska, it's very evident. Basically, winter solstice is around December, like 20th, end of December. And in Anchorage, when it hits winter solstice, you get around like 20 hours of darkness. And then every single day after hitting winter solstice, you gain like 7 minutes of daylight every day until summer solstice, which is in like June 21st or something. And then you get like 20 hours of lightness in Anchorage. So that's always like a really special time, because growing up in Alaska, it wasn't abnormal to me because I grew up just like playing outside, and we'd be like playing outside, biking around on the coastal trail with our friends at like 10, and it just felt like a 7 p.m. type of thing. And our parents, I mean, it's honestly like not as safe anymore. Just with, I don't know, I think post-COVID, it's not as safe. Like even the trails like are kind of like dirtier, but it was like the best childhood. And to me, summer just represented like light. It would just be light outside all day. And so I really love summer solstice. So that's always like a special time. But this one was really nice because we were like hosting our family friends who I hadn't seen since I was like a kid. And that's actually who's helping me come move. So that was cool because the guy in their family is my age. And it was really cool because we're not like similar at all in that like I'm doing like social media, and I like graduated and decided to like just put everything into like pursuing whatever I'm doing. And he has like a very different path. He like went to college. He's like an engineer. Just like lives in a different part of the world, but we have like a lot in common. Just like we kind of always come to the same like overall conclusions. So that was really cool to just like meet someone who is not at all doing like whatever I'm trying to do, but who is really similar to me and had like, we could just have really cool discussions and like talk. So we would just like stay up and just like talk about like whatever things that we were thinking. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? Because I would do my little weird theories like the Northern Lights. I think that has to affect people. So that was really fun. And yeah, that was also really pivotal time. Like I remember I just came back from New York and Miami, and I had just reached out because I was just too scared to reach out to people to podcast with, because at that time I was like, I'm gonna make my podcast like centered around guests, which more and more I kind of actually just like doing solo podcasts, because there's just like this kind of weird dynamic of like I have a lot of creator friends, and I don't want them to think that I'm like trying to use them for anything. But I also have a lot of creator friends that I'm not actually that close with. And I don't want them to be like, oh, I want to be on your podcast. If I don't want them on my podcast, like I want the people on my podcast to be like people who I've like vouched for. Because I just don't want any surprises, and I don't want to be putting myself in like weird positions. So I'm kind of like, wow. And I just spit everywhere. I can kind of just rely on myself with this. Like I just show up by myself and I'm like, okay, well, I don't have to, rely. But I also do want to have conversations with like people that I think are really cool. So I reached out to this woman named Megan Klein who created Little Saints, which I talk about all the time. Use I'm 20. And it was like really scary for me to do that, and super last minute because we were pretty much just missing each other. She was in New York and I was in Miami, and she was coming back to Miami. I was going to New York. And so we made it work. Like the day that I was leaving, I went to the studio before my flight, and I was just like, wow, this is so cool. Like I'm so happy for myself for just reaching out. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it was to me. And I also reached out to this other girl, I would say she's a woman, but this other woman who was like, yeah, like I'm going to be busy for the next months, but reach back out to me. And I want to do that one in person. But it was just really cool because I don't know, for me, I don't know what the worst that could happen is. It's like they say no. But honestly, every time I actually do outreach, it takes me like a little while to gain the strength or like whatever. I don't know. I just need to get over it. But I am like slowly working on that. And I think I'm actually at a much better place now. But I have like a pretty good hit success rate. Like when I actually do outreach, it's over like half the people that actually say yes. So I don't know, like I just get in my head of like, oh, why would they want to? But there are people with like much smaller platforms that are much more thoughtless about it that get really good guests to come on. So maybe that's like a lesson for us all and me to just do the freaking outreach and just to shoot your shot. That's like really what I'm trying to do this year, but not really. Like I have like a few people that I think I just want to talk to have that conversation, but it's not really my goal with this podcast to like, oh, I want to get the best guests or like the biggest guests, because I'm kind of chilling like this. This is like fun for me. But yeah, I wonder how it looks like for just when I ask guests, like if I just have a bunch of solo podcasts, then like one guest, I don't know. So summer solstice, very cool. Yeah. And it was interesting. It felt like the stars like aligned for just like a bunch of like different things in this time period. My next one was that week after summer solstice. So I spent that week in Alaska. I went back to New York, and this is where my whole fleas video takes place. The week prior was my synchronicity in New York City video. And then I went to Alaska, and then the next week I had planned on being in New York for like the whole summer, because that was like 1 year after I moved out. And it was really just like me doing it for myself, like proving to myself that I could do it. And I wanted to make like a bunch of videos, because the week that I moved out the year prior in 2022, I filmed like 5 videos in 1 week. And that lasted me like the entire summer. Like I was able to edit all of those videos just throughout the summer, and they all did really well. So I was like, I'm gonna have another one of those weeks where I just am there for the summer. I make a bunch of content, and living in NYC just does better for SEO. That's why so many people use that as titles. So that was my plan. And I just had this whole series of unfortunate events where the universe God was like, no, this is not your plan. And this is actually the first time, like the night that I got to New York, I was just feeling sorry for myself. I was like, I think I was like, just couldn't sleep because I'd taken like a red eye, and then I took a nap. So I was just like up, and then I discovered that I had the place that I was staying at. My foot started itching basically. And then I took my foot out to itch at like 1 in the morning. And then I noticed that there were like 4 fleas on my foot, just sucking my blood or eating whatever they do on your feet. And so then I was just like, okay, yeah. And I don't know if I prayed before or after, but I hadn't prayed since I was like a little girl, but something just came over me where I remember I wrote an email to myself at the time, because one of my friends, He's a podcaster. He like used to do this, and he suggested just like if I wanted to start writing, just try writing like an email to myself or like to someone I admire, which I think was like a really cool idea, and I'm grateful that he suggested that idea. So I can look back at these like exact emails, and I was just feeling really sorry for myself, like feeling like I wasn't doing that much, didn't have like a lot of output on my YouTube channel, which I still don't, but for some reason the entire energy around it has just like shifted because of surrender. That's what I've like learned how to do this last year. And I was just in a ditch. I was in a big little ditch that I had just was sitting in, feeling really bad for myself. And then I like prayed for a change. And then that was kind of like the catalyst, I think, of just a whole different series that has even followed me to Austin. Like, this is not related, but like I did kind of want to touch on this because I haven't really talked about it. So I guess I'll talk about it now. But like, actually, no, it kind of bleeds into one of the next events. So I'll save it. But I feel like I've gone on this whole spiritual journey in the last 2 years, or like probably the last few years. I should read my journals back to like really know, but I always say like the last 2 years I've become spiritual, but I think it's actually longer. But I really dove deep into spirituality and all like the little things, and I feel like that's kind of led me, my like sign synchronicities eventually led me to when I got to Austin, like my first week in Austin, going to church, being invited to church, meeting a bunch of religious people. Even like I signed up for this like writing course, and like the guy, he converted to Christianity. I think he's like half Jewish, and he would talk about it. Like I feel like a lot of people surrounding me are just like in the groups that I was in when I was getting fleas. Like Kelly Stamps came to visit me, and this guy named Ozzy, who are both like Christian and would they wouldn't like push whatever, but I am just like always interested in learning about like people's spirituality or like their theories of the universe or God. So I would ask them questions, and then they would just kind of like talk to me about it. So that was a super interesting time period. And that actually was not one of my top moments, the fleas moment, but literally the week I eventually ended up leaving New York early. Like I had planned on staying there for at least like a month, and I just gave up. I was like, I need to flee New York City from these fleas. I took care of the flea problem. It was all good. It took me a really long time, lots of cleaning. I really like this video because it's just so symbolic of like the ditch that I was in and how I kind of overcame that. And I can tell you that I've never been more excited to leave New York City. And I feel like that was also kind of guided in whatever way. God or the universe was like, you do not belong here anymore. You don't need to keep trying to come back here. So that was really interesting. So my next top moment was literally the first week back in Alaska after fleas, because I was just so relieved to not be in New York and not be dealing with the fleas and to just be at home. Because in New York, it was really hot and really itchy. And when you're hot and itchy, I would literally just like visualize myself in a cold plunge so that I wouldn't itch my feet. It got really bad, at least in the first place, because I carried them. I don't know if I explained this right, but that wasn't on my list of things to talk about. But just watch my next video. It'll probably be out after mid-January. I guess it's now mid-January. But yeah, like I stayed at one place and then discovered all these fleas. And then I ended up, through a synchronicity of events, meeting this girl who was like, hey, I'm going to be gone for like a month in Europe, or for like 18 days, and you can stay at our place, because all of her roommates were leaving too. And prior to that, I had planned on being at that flea place and then going to visit my sister in DC and then going to a different place and then a different place and a different place. Like I would have had to move like 4 times, but I was just doing it for myself, like to prove to myself that I could do it. So I was willing to do it. But I ended up having a new place to stay just down the road from where I was in Williamsburg that I'd really liked the area of. And I carried the fleas, like hand carried them and delivered them into this new space. So that's why I was like, I really need to solve this problem. And I spiraled like a little bit. I was like, I'm going to have to take over their lease. Like it was like a 3-bedroom place. I was like, I'm going to have to figure out how to like pay for this. Yeah, it was a lot. But I took care of it. And I, again, have never been happier to leave New York. And it all really just felt guided. again, because that was like the first time I prayed, and it wasn't like obviously something that I was like, oh, this is great. This is like answering my prayers. But in a way, I just feel like that was like a message, like a symbolic delivery for my internal knowing that I was chasing like the wrong things and I didn't need to be there. So yeah, the next top moment was being back in Alaska after that. And it was really cool because I was able to celebrate my friends' weddings. My sister was there, and she doesn't often go back to Alaska. She doesn't live there anymore. And I felt like I took my power, or I just like was living in my power. I'd watched The Matrix during the Fleas week, and I learned this line that I'm obsessed with that I talk about all the time. There's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And I had even read The Power of One More through my synchronicity video, and the guy who wrote that was like also pretty religious. And so I don't know, just like actually looking back, like a lot of interesting little signs that have guided me to where I'm at today. So then I took one more trip back to New York just because I had already told my editor, Abrion, that I wanted to meet her. So she was planning on being there, and I also had already told this one girl that I would like stay at her place, and I just felt guilty. Like I'm trying to actually just work on just like living my own life for me and not like doing things out of guilt or like obligation to people who probably, I'm not saying literally anything about this person whose place I stayed at, but you know, they would maybe not do the same for me. It's just me trying to do the right thing. So maybe that's not a bad thing, but I'm trying to be like a little bit more selfish. That's like one feedback that I'm getting even from my friends. They're like, you need to live life for you. Like I've gotten that from quite a few of my friends. So I went back one more time, but this time I had no expectation. I wasn't trying to force anything or push myself. It was on paper like a waste of money, but this was the best trip that I've had to New York because even like more synchronicity happened. Like I ended up staying at this place, and Abrion just happened to be like literally the next building over, which what are the chances of that? Like I was trying to sell her on staying in Williamsburg. Not really. Like I was just like, I think you'd like it. But we just happened to stay. This was my first time ever staying near Wall Street or in the financial district. And yeah, I'd never spent any time there before, really. And we just happened to be literally like 100 feet away. So that was really cool. I got to meet her, and I talked to her a lot, you know, just like an exchange. I haven't worked with her a ton in the last year, but that's like something I'm trying to do. I had her send me a list of videos that she's worked on with me, and every video on that list like ended up being one of my favorite videos. So I'm like, okay, collaboration is a must in the new year for me, and working with her is something that I want to prioritize. So meeting her was cool, and it was cool because I knew that I liked her just from virtually talking to her, but I liked her even more after meeting her in person. So that made me feel really good about like working with people that I just genuinely like, that I think are good people. We recorded a podcast. I'll definitely link it somewhere or talk about it again when she posts that, because I don't remember what we talked about now, but I remember liking the podcast and being energized from it, and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes podcasts drain me. And yeah, I just kind of hung out. And I started reading Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. And that was the chapter that I was reading, was like, you can become addicted to your routines and like just things that you do. And I remember even going out of my way to just like have a conversation with kind of a stranger, and we were just like voice memoing. And I was like, I wouldn't usually do that because I'm just like, who has time for this? But I just approached things very differently. I did something different every day. And I think that's really important to do every now and then when you're just like, you know, you're in a routine of doing something the exact same way. My routine right now is having no routine. So now the difference that I would make is actually just having stability and routine as I'm leaving tomorrow. But that was really cool. So that was my last time in New York. And honestly, I don't have any real plans to go back. And I'm kind of completely okay with that. So that was my next highlight. And then my last highlight was my first week in Austin. This was super interesting too. It also felt guided because the first week I got here on a Sunday. I ended up just going on a random walk, and I went like this way. And it ended up being, I didn't realize this until like the third time I returned back to this area. But it ended up being the place that my friend Oyun took me the very first day that I ever got to Austin. I was visiting in April of last year, and she just took me to this park, and we went to see Sweet Green. And it was the very first place. We're like for 10 minutes from that park, and I just walked there and happened to go to the exact same place that she had taken me to. But it took me a little while, a few times of going back, to realize that that was the exact same place. Then the Tuesday that I arrived, after the Sunday I arrived, I went to this event, this creator event. One of the only two events that I have gone to in Austin that are like specifically creator, like YouTube events. And I was invited by my roommates, and I ended up seeing Isaiah Photos there, and I had met him in New York through Tejas, and I just saw him and I was like, that's so interesting. I don't know if I knew that he lived here, but my roommate Chris was just like, I need to go to church, and I was like interested in learning more about going to church. And he just happened, I think he literally was like talking to other people about either faith or his own church, and I was like, hey, we're looking for a church to go to. And he was like, well, come to ours. And he was just like the most welcoming, inviting person in Austin. And that ended up like kind of being, I don't know, just like the warmth and like welcoming from him made me feel like comfortable going to church. And so I've actually gone to church like every time I go, I write like notes, so I guess I could like see how many times I've gone. But I've gone more than I ever have probably for sure in my adult life. Like I really haven't gone since I was like a little girl. And that has been like a whole interesting experience on its own, honestly. And my whole motto for like the last year was faith over fear. But I was like, I didn't know why. So yeah, a lot has changed with that. Like even the first week, like we had, I mean, technically, I guess this is called like the Bible Belt, which I didn't really know because I've always grown up on the West Coast. I went to school in LA, grew up Washington and Alaska, so I've been on the West Coast. And then New York, that was interesting. But here, just had a ton of different experiences where I would literally see people that I admired, and their reasoning would be not like, oh, I grew up Christian and then I just came back to it. It would be like, I wanted to read the Bible to disprove all of the people who read the Bible, and then I started reading it, and then I decided that this is like the best book in the world, and I converted to Christianity type thing. Like I've heard that story a few times. Just like really interesting. Like the first week we got here, I ended up meeting like Isaiah. That was interesting. And then we had like another guy through the guys come through, and he was like spiritual, and he started becoming like believing in faith. And he like prayed for me and Max. He prayed over us. And then I just like met a lot of people. Like Brad gave me the book by Tim Keller called, I haven't read the book. I'm a slow reader. I read like nonfiction books, like kind of self-helpy books. I'm really trying to pick up more fiction this year because that's when I fell in love with reading. Like I remember in my childhood, just like I would read fiction books all the time, and now I don't. But that's one thing that I'm trying to do this year. But basically, it just felt like a guided experience. Like it just weird. Even like I remember one time I was kind of going through like a little bit of a spiral, like a mini spiral when I was in New York, and I was talking to Elliot. And I don't even think he's very religious. I don't think he is. But he was like, have you ever considered God? And then I was just like, So yeah, just like a weird, interesting series of events eventually led me to Austin, eventually led me to starting to go to this church. Even my neighbor, like the church is like 20 minutes from us. There are probably hundreds, thousands of churches that are much closer. And my neighbor, the first day I met her, was wearing an Alaska shirt, and she's been there in her house since 96, which is the year I was born. I put a lot of 96 like hidden in my podcast. And we got drinks one night, and she's been like my neighborhood guide. Like she just showed me around the neighborhood and all like the good spots, and she like knows everyone. It's pretty funny. And she told me that she goes to the same church, not often because she works on Sundays, but we ended up going for New Year's, and it's just like a weird series of like honestly synchronicities. So lots of really cool, and I'm glad that we went because I wouldn't have stayed. The church service ended up being later at like 11 instead of 9, and I would have left, but since I went with her or told her I would go with her, we ended up staying, and it was a great service and just like a great start to the new year. I have it right here, 12/31/23. So it's been really, really interesting being here. I really feel like I've never experienced like anything like it, just like kind of the experiences that I've had. And I feel like even though I haven't been here for that long, I've really liked the community that I've like kind of met here. And I feel like I kind of dove deep into it. Like I actually feel like I could just move here and like be here. Like I like it a lot. And I've always loved New York. Like I feel like I'm very well received there. Like I can, like, people on the street, like just people and strangers. There are just some places that you feel like you belong. To me, that was never LA. I never felt like I was comfortable in my own body there. But New York, I felt comfortable. But there was just like some underlying thing where I'm just like, I don't know if I could actually settle here. But I feel like Austin is like definitely a place that I can. Although I have no solid plans or next steps. I'm going to move some of my stuff to my brother's this next week on Tuesday. So that's when I'm posting this podcast. I will be there. And then I'm going to move back with my parents, which I'm kind of excited about. Make sure they're doing well. Check in on them. And then I'm sure I will get antsy to do something else. And I'm really trying to do some more collaborations with people that I know that I want to collab with. So I'm going to bring back my I Intern For series, which I'm super excited about because that is one of my favorite series. And I'm either going to bop around again, which probably wouldn't be great for my whole goal on stability, or I might just commit to Alaska for this time being because we're in a new solar cycle and I'm trying to get that solar light. Just kidding. But I kind of want, I don't know, I think Alaska's like a fascinating place, and I've gained like a ton from hosting people and friends in Alaska and doing Alaska Friends. If you're like an OG on my channel, then you know what that is. But I might revive that. I really don't know. I really have no plan. The last sermon, it was cool because I was hanging out with Kelly, Stamps, Isaiah, Steezy, and my friend Oyen, and we were all just like having this discussion about like God and church and religion, because in that group, like, some people are religious, some people are like on the verge of, or on spiritual, on the verge of like spirituality, or on the verge of like whatever God. I feel like that's not the proper way to say it, but that was just me trying to process words, not using God's name in vain. So we were just having this big conversation, and it centered around prayer, because there are a lot of forms of prayer, and I don't even think you really have to be religious to pray. So that was what we were talking about. And then the next day we went to church, and it was like the first service after the new year, and the whole thing was centered around prayer. So that was really cool, because I've been to like a bunch of services before and they had never centered the whole thing around prayer. But it was funny because the pastor was like, you can pray to ask God where to go and what to do. And I was like, that is literally what I am asking for guidance on. So honestly, I'm not worried about it. Like, I feel like I am really genuinely in a place of surrender where I'm just like, anything could happen. And I feel like I'm prepared. I've like let go of like the fear and anxiety, and I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. So I'm gonna be praying and waiting for an answer on where to go and what to do. And in the meantime, I am hopeful. I'm pretty sure that I'll come back to Austin. I just don't know if I'll come back to live in the next like few months. I also don't really want to be here for summer because I'm an Alaska girl, and I can't imagine being here for summer. I love my walks. I go on a walk every day. That's really important to me. And I think I think it's fine to live here in the summer if you're just like inside with air conditioning. But I got here like mid-September and it was like past 100 degrees, and that was actually really nice and perfect for me. But I can't imagine it being like hotter than 110 degrees. Like, that's hot yoga status. Like, you could literally, I can't imagine just like entering like the environment of hot yoga, like Bikram yoga, hot 26, and just stepping outside and having that. And I think it's also humid here, so it would like literally be, I should come back and just teach like yoga outside, honestly. That would be interesting. But yeah, again, I think like there's no better place than like Alaska in the summer, so I might just move back there for this new solar year. And I don't know, we're gonna see what I feel guided to do. So that's kind of all of my updates. I think I'm probably going to get ready. Oh, it's 3. Yeah. My family friend is coming at 4 around, so I should probably clean up a little bit and pack and get that started. But yeah, this is the last podcast from the content closet. This was a really special place for me too. Honestly, Austin and like even my roommates, this felt like a very much a new chapter in my life. I feel like this was really good for me, just like personally, even spiritually. I feel like I've made like a lot of improvement here in ways that I can't even like probably articulate or see in the moment, but I know that looking back, like this will be a pivotal point in my life. Like that's how it feels, at least. And there have been like many people a part of that little journey, and I feel like I've like found other people who've like opened up a lot of light to me, because I feel like the year prior it was just like I feel like I experienced like a lot of my own darkness, or like things that maybe helped put me in a darker mindset, but then a lot of people that like perpetuated that, which sucks. Like when you're down and then like you experience like you get disappointed by people or things that they do. So Austin is felt very light to me. So that's amazing. And sometimes the best thing that you can just do for yourself is get into a new environment. Like all the habit people say, like sometimes that's the most important thing. Like the most crucial aspect is changing your environment. And I really actually believe in that. I know it's not feasible for everyone, but even just doing anything to make that happen, I think can be crucial, like life-changing. So maybe that's some food for thought if any of you all are listening to this and need a change. Like maybe it's like the environment. And it's cool nowadays because you can really do it pretty cheap. Like you can utilize Airbnbs, or you can sublease other people's, because people travel all the time. Like that's how I stayed in New York every single time. I would sublease other people's places. And I've seen so many people list their places for subleasing. I would have endless options if I actually wanted to go back to New York right now. I could be there, but I just don't want to be there. So yeah, even just like for months at a time, it is life-changing. So I think that this is probably a good place to wrap it up. Thank you all so much for listening. If you have made it this far, comment with a yellow emoji, and you could do a honey roast for me if you want. Just comment your favorite thing about me. Just kidding. I should have done that for my birthday. But yeah, I think that's it for now. I'm working on my fleas video. I'm super excited about that one just because it's very different for me, and it's kind of like the format of videos that I want. But then after that, I think I need to get back to like a regular posting schedule, and like one that won't take me months to edit. Not that this one is taking actual months to edit. It's just the brain. It's just taking a lot for me to even open the computer. So I think we're getting back there. But after this one, I have one more video that I kind of want to make, like an Austin, like what I've learned in Austin, or just like a cool sequence of events that happen. Even my first week in Austin, I signed up for this writing course that I think was really cool. So it covers like all of that stuff in the next one. But after that, I want to kind of get back to like vlogging, or just like doing some cool capturing videos where I can get on a more consistent uploading schedule, and also with a lot of collaboration. So thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave a comment. Those are super helpful for engagement. I was on this brand call and I was like, yeah, I've taken a break from YouTube. Like, what can we do to, boost our chances of sponsorship, because I need to make some money. And they were like, you know, engagement is important. So leaving a comment, even though that doesn't seem important, and I never really leave comment on people's stuff that I watch, super helpful, whether that's like just a comment or a like. And the higher quality, the better, honestly. Like, it was really interesting because I was talking to Steezy and he was like, part of the reason why I want to start a new channel is because I hate the generic comments that are like, it's a great day when Steezy uploads, which I think is kind of hilarious because, like, who would get mad at that comment? But it's kind of true. It's like you just have like a bunch of pointless comments. So if you have something to add, that would be great. And yes, liking this video, commenting, and otherwise it's up to me for consistency and a regular uploading schedule for the last few months. So sponsors will come back like probably in a month or two. So thank you all so much for listening, and I will talk to you next week on Tuesday. Bye.